Falling Sky is based upon Caesar's conquest of Gaul, with 4 separate factions, all vying for control of the board and ultimate individual victory. The game is played over the course of 5 in-game years, with each year culminating with a winter. The game ends either when a player fulfills their victory conditions at the end of a year, or when the final 5th winter is reached. This video will help explain the general mechanics, although you will still need to read through the rules in order to grasp the finer details of play. The board comprises of the following: a map split into various tribal regions, a numbered track, a box for turn and end of year sequences, a Senate track, 2 legions tracks, and an overflow box for when the regions get too crowded. Each region contains 1 or more tribes, the highlighted tribe also being used for the name of the region, a box to track who has control of the region, and some square tribes which can be used to build citadels. The numbered track is used to keep count of a variety of things, including players' resources and victory points. Every player also has their own game board, used to keep track of how many pieces are in play and to store units when they are off the board. Each scenario has a different setup, so this guide won't go into any details about how to lay out the pieces. Just be aware that the game comes with some spares. It's best to start by putting all the units on the player board in the amount specified on them. There are 4 playable factions and 1 non-player faction, each with their own special abilities and starting locations. The Romans in red, the Arverni in green, the Aedui in blue, the Belgic yellow, and the non-player faction, the Germanics, in black. Here is a brief overview of all of the different factions. The Romans. The Romans are strong militarily and can construct forts anywhere after long marches. They rely on uninterrupted chains of controlled regions for a supply line, however, and also answer to the Senate. They win by having more than 15 subdued or allied tribes. The Arverni. The Arverni can mobilize large armies quickly and devastate regions which deprives them of resources. Their armies are weak, however, and need to be replaced often. They win if the Romans have more than 6 off-map legions and they have at least 8 allied tribes. The Belgi. With strong fighters capable of scaring off enemy forces before the battle is even started, the Belgi can also send occasional commands out to their German cousins. Their power is strongest in the north, however, so overextension can quickly become an issue. The Aedui. The Aedui have the weakest military, but instead focus on negotiations and politics to win the game. They can quickly convert regions as they see fit, and trade with the Romans for quick resource gains. They win by having more allied tribes than any other faction. Although there are no predetermined alliances in the game, generally the Aedui and the Romans are semi-friendly, as are the Arverni and the Belgic. The Germans are hostile to all players. Every player has their own player board, which is used to hold the faction sets of pieces. Each faction has a fairly similar set of pieces: warbands, called auxilia for Romans, allied tribe tokens, citadel tokens, called forts for Romans, a leader token, apart from the Aedui, and the Romans also have legions. These pieces are placed in regions and used to battle rival factions in order to gain control of that region by having the most pieces within it. When pieces are lost, they are placed back onto the player board, except for legions, which are placed in the Fallen Legions box. The game is played in a series of turns, each turn being signified by a card played from a deck. Within the deck are 5 evenly shuffled winter cards. When one of these is flipped, the year then ends, and after the 5th winter card, if no victor has emerged, the game ends and a victor is calculated. The game starts by taking the first card from the top of the deck and placing it next to the deck with the next card also visible. This allows you to see what's coming up next round and plan ahead. On top of each card are a set of faction symbols. These signify the player order for the turn. Generally, only 2 players get to play each turn, whilst the other 2 must wait until the next round. The player whose symbol is first on the top of the card gets to go first, the second eligible player next, whilst the third and fourth must wait until the second round. There are a choice of actions available to the first player, and their choice directly influences what the second player can do. These actions are recorded on the turn sequence track using player markers. The first player has a choice of the following: a command with no special ability, a command with a special ability, use the event written on the turn's card, or they can pass until the next round. The second player's action is determined by what the first player did. Depending on what was chosen, the second player must play the following: a limited command, a choice of the card event or a limited command, a command with a special ability. The two players who played these first two actions are unable to play in the next round and wait in the ineligible section of the turn sequence track. With two actions complete, the round is now over and the next card is taken from the deck, face up, and put on top of the first card, with the third card now also visible. There are a variety of actions that can be taken depending on your position in the above sequence. A regular command, such as a battle, march, recruit. These vary from faction to faction and can be carried out in one or more regions and generally cost resources. A limited command, which is the same as a regular command, but can only be carried out in a single region. A regular command plus special ability, with the abilities again changing for each faction. The event on the card, which are either played instantly or add permanent abilities, or finally, you can pass, which allows the player to stay eligible for the next round, plus gain a resource, 2 resources if you're Roman. If there is a third eligible player, they can then play instead. The white and black pawns are used to keep track of where the player has undertaken actions and abilities. There is no limit for irregular commands. Limited commands are just for one region, so the pawns are a guide and not a restriction. If a special ability is chosen as part of the player's turn, it can be used once, at any time, even before any regular commands, or in the middle of a series of multiple commands being carried out in multiple regions. As each faction has different command and ability types, it is best for each player to review their own faction sheet independently to learn these in detail. Each faction is attempting to gain control of the various regions. They do so by having the most pieces in a region. This control is then marked by a token with the player's tribe on it. Within each region are one or more tribes. These can also be made more or less loyal, being allied to a faction, or even be dispersed completely by the Romans. Allied tribes are used to recruit new warbands, and if they are within a square icon, they can in turn be upgraded to citadels by the Gallic tribes. The number of allied tribes also counts towards each faction's victory points total. The various levels for a tribe are as follows: Citadel, which is Gallic only and built on allied tribes, marked with a square piece, and it reduces losses in the region by half. Romans instead can put forts down in any region. Allied, available to all players and marked with a circular piece, allows factions to recruit new forces. It can't be placed on dispersed tribes. Subdued, the default status, adds to the Roman victory points and can be turned into an ally. Gathering, previously dispersed tribes, marked with a token. They can't be used as an ally, and at the end of the year the tokens are removed, turning them back into subdued. Finally, dispersed. The Romans can disperse up to 4 tribes, mark them with a token. They can't be used as an ally, and at the end of the year the token is flipped back to gathering. Take allied discs and citadels off your player board from the lowest numbers first, so that you can see how many you've placed in total for scoring. Warbands and auxilia can either be revealed or hidden. This is signified by flipping the marker over with the end with the icon indicating visible. Pieces are always put onto the board in a hidden state. They are revealed and hidden by various actions such as battle, card events, and the end of year phase. Hidden units carry several benefits such as allowing the Romans to scout and the Gallic to ambush, amongst other things. Romans scout out hidden warbands as one of their abilities. This adds a scouted token to those units, which doubles the required number of actions needed to set them to hidden, with the first action removing the token before the second can then flip them back to hidden. All player factions, with the exception of the Aedui, have a leader unit which allows for the use of certain faction special abilities and aid in battle. The leaders can be killed and are then removed from the board. At the end of the year, they can be added back in the form of a successor which has limited powers. Flip the unit over to plain side to indicate this. Each faction has the ability to fight other factions. The battle sequence can be slightly different depending on whether playing as the Romans or the Gallic tribes. It generally involves counting the number of units and then factoring in losses depending on the total attacker count plus defense bonuses for things like forts or citadels. The battle procedure flowchart makes this process easy to work out. Each card has an event which can be carried out. Some cards have dual uses. The player can choose which of them to use, but typically the shaded text helps out the Gallic tribes. Some cards also have a purple capability icon. If used, this card is added next to the player's board and a capability icon is put on to indicate whether the player chose the shaded or unshaded capability. This capability is an ongoing effect which can be used for the rest of the game. We will now run through a sample turn to illustrate gameplay. The card on the top of the deck is moved across and will be the card for this turn. The next card is flipped up in its place to reveal the next turn. The symbols across the top of the card indicate that the Romans go first, followed by the Belgi. The Romans decide to play a full command and so move their counter to the top box of the sequence track. They would like to march, and as it is a full command, they can do so from as many regions as they like. However, this turn they will march from just 2 regions. They put black pawns in the 2 regions to indicate where they are playing and pay 4 resources, 2 for each region, moving their marker down the track 4 spaces. Romans can march up to 2 regions from the starting region. They decide to move half of their forces from the first region across to the adjacent region and then onto a second connected region. They then decide to move the other half of the pieces from the starting region the other direction so they can spread out. Any number of marches can be played from the starting region. They still have the other region to march from, so they do this now and move the pieces into the neighbouring region to apply pressure to the enemy faction. If they had chosen a full command with a special ability such as build, they could have used the special ability once at any time during the above, pausing the march command to build in as many desired regions, placing white pawns to indicate them, before finishing to march after the build ability was concluded. The Belgi are up next, but because they are the first eligible faction on the next card's list of icons, and they would like to guarantee the use of the event on the card, they decide to pass, which grants them a resource and keeps them eligible for the next round. As they passed, the next player listed on the round's card gets to play. This is the Averni. As the Romans chose a full command, the Averni must play a limited command, as illustrated by the sequence track, and move their piece to that box. They decide to battle the Romans who just invaded their region. As it's just a single region, keeping track of a pawn isn't really necessary. The Averni have 3 warbands, and the Romans have 3 auxilia and 1 legion. 3 warbands halved and then rounded down equals 1 loss. The Romans choose to lose an auxilia and then decide to counterattack with the remaining legion in 2 auxilia. The legion does 1 damage, and the number of auxilia halved does 1, which removes 2 enemy warbands. This concludes the turn. The Romans and Averni now move into the ineligible section, and the Belgi and the Aedui are up next. When a winter card comes up as the next card to be played, a frost token is placed on top of the final card for the year. This prevents any non-event march commands for the final card. After this final turn, a winter phase is played. This involves the following. Check for victory. If a player has achieved their victory conditions, the game ends. A Germanic phase. The Germanic tribes carry out a series of actions using the flowchart on the Germanic tribes foldout to do so. A quarters phase, which allows for a final movement of units. Harvest. Each faction receives resources depending on faction type. And a Senate phase. This is when the Senate marker gets moved towards adulation or uproar, depending on how well the Romans are doing. The final result possibly grants extra legions. After the winter phase, the spring phase is carried out. This involves the following steps. Replace dead leaders with successors. Move remaining fallen legions to the legion track. Remove scouted and devastated tokens from the map. Remove gathering tribe tokens. Flip dispersed tribe tokens to gathering, and move all players to eligible. Flip the next card to begin the new year. This concludes the basics of how to play. There are many detailed rules in the game, so you will need to read through the rulebook before starting a new game. Happy conquesting!